President al-Assad receives Mr. Alauddin Prajrodi, Chairman of the Committee of National Security and Foreign Policy in the Iranian Shura Council. Our valiant armed forces continue to purge our homeland from mercenary terrorists. Syria joins the preparatory meetings of the non-aligned summit in Tehran, attended by 120 delegations. And Al-Merj Square in central Damascus is a historic monument also known as the Martyrs' Square.
Good afternoon, welcome to our news bulletin. I'm Dania Nizam. President Bashar al-Assad received Dr. Alauddin Prajrodi, Chairman of the Committee of National Security and Foreign Policy in the Iranian Shura Council. Information Minister Amran al-Zabi stressed that part of the war in Syria is a media war based on broadcasting a large amount of fabricated news in order to transfer a different picture of what reality is happening and mislead the Arab and world public opinions. Minister al-Zabi pointed out during a meeting with the chairman of the Committee on National Security and Foreign Policy Council at the Iranian Shura Council, Dr. Alauddin Prajrodi, to the shift in the path of the media since the war in Iraq, where the media accompanied the occupation forces, taking the information from them, and today it turned to be the spearhead, a tool and party taking part in the aggression against Syria, noting the role played by the Iranian media and its multiple channels, especially those speaking Arabic, in transfer of an objective picture about the reality of what is going on and the events in Syria. Our valiant armed forces continue to chase the terrorist groups in several quarters of Aleppo in order to restore safety and security and to get rid of the crimes of the mercenary terrorists. A unit of our armed forces clashed with terrorists in Bab al-Hadid, inflicting several casualties among them. Another unit destroyed a gathering of terrorists in the vicinity of al-Jdeida area in Aleppo. In Latakia, the Syrian Arab army continues to chase the terrorists in the terrains around Selma, which is only 16 kilometers away from the Turkish borders.
Selma is a town in Latakia Governorate, and it is about 40 kilometers away from the city center. It includes several villages like Durin, Kfr Dilbe, Khirbat al-Baz, Merj al-Khokh, Tirtiah, Derkiye, and al-Hisr. It is distinguished for its hard terrains and its beautiful natural forests. Selma has become now a place for the armed terrorist groups who infiltrate through the forests and mountains that reach Turkey, taking into consideration that Selma is only 16 kilometers away from Turkey. The Syrian Arab Army has chased the terrorists into the areas exactly adjacent to Selma and is overlooking it from the mountains there.
We are now overlooking the Dorin village. Behind this meadow, there is a village called Markhokha. The terrorists headed from it towards the Salma, Al-Mghirbe, and Tirtiah, in addition to Al-Dwirke and Kansaba.
The Syrian Arab Army is preparing for an operation to clear Salma from the terrorists in the nearest future.
After cleansing El Tel area in Damascus countryside from terrorist groups, security forces stormed a hideout used by terrorists in committing their crimes. The hideout was used to prepare explosive devices to target citizens. In the Damascus countryside, armed forces carried out a qualitative operation in Daraya and its vicinity, storming terrorist hideouts. The operation resulted in the death of many terrorists, the capture of others, and the confiscation of large amounts of different weapons, including mortar shells, various missiles and RPGs, in addition to automatic guns, landmines, night binoculars. Our armed forces also stormed a field hospital, well equipped with various medical supplies and oxygen cylinders. In Homs, a unit of our armed forces chased a terrorist group that used to attack citizens and security forces in Al-Husn in the countryside. Many terrorists were killed and wounded. Our security forces foiled an attempt by terrorist groups to attack the security forces. The terrorists sustained heavy losses. Units of the Syrian Arab Army forces continue the process of purging the Idlib countryside from armed terrorist gangs and besiege them in the industrial area. The operation resulted in heavy casualties among the terrorists and the destruction of several of their vehicles, which were equipped with machine guns. A unit of our armed forces confronted another terrorist group coming from Jabal al-Zawiya to support the terrorists of Ariha. The terrorists sustained heavy losses, and in the quarter of Jurat al-Sharia and Homs, our armed forces chased a terrorist group and captured most of them, including their leader known as Al-Sibai. In the Hama countryside, the security forces clashed with a terrorist group that used to terrify innocent citizens. Several terrorists were captured and several others were killed, including Mustafa Arif Hizzo, Mujahid Khwaidir Rajab and Abdel Nasir Muhammad Alloush. Our security forces confiscated machine guns, RPGs, bombs, automatic guns and communication equipment. In the Daraa countryside, the security forces combed the Yarmouk Valley and chased terrorists, killing large numbers of them and confiscating various weapons, passports and wireless equipment. In Busra Sham, the security forces chased another terrorist group and killed a large number of them, including Hamza Haytham al-Ouda. Several other terrorists were captured with their weapons, communication equipment and cameras. In the village of Mehja, the terrorists fell in an ambush staged by the security forces, which confiscated their weapons. The security forces also stormed a gathering of terrorists al-Yodada, killing many of them. In Deir ez-Zor, security forces clashed with an armed terrorist group that attacked citizens and committed acts of sabotage in the neighborhood of Deir al-Atiq. An official source in the city said that the clashes resulted in killing and the injuring of the group's members. Security forces also raided a hideout for terrorists in Al-Wadi Street in the neighborhood of Al-Jura and clashed with the terrorist group, killing the terrorist Yusuf Darouj. The authorities arrested 5 other terrorists and seized their weapons, which included machine guns, RPG shells, and a number of communication devices. The new international envoy to Syria announced the official start of his mission from the headquarters of the international organization that appointed him. He announced that the interests of the Syrian people come above everything else. Syria welcomed any effort exerted under this motto. Syria's enemies have always aborted any such mission.
The envoy, Mr. Al-Akhdar Al-Ibrahimi, announced his intention to work with all parties and states in order to arrange political dialogue, although he realized that his mission was surrounded with Western and regional minefields. The attitude of the envoy would not be accepted by the anti-Syrian alliance, whose plots aim to bring down the Syrian state. They have prepared to foil his mission, as they have done to the mission of his predecessor Kofi Annan. Mr. Al-Ibrahimi enjoys the support of Russia for his mission to accelerate the end of violence and start of dialogue on the basis of the 6-point plan, the Geneva Agreement, and the relevant Security Council resolutions. However, the danger lies in the Western habit of foiling any mission even before it starts. The Western states and their regional agents are determined to foil the political solution. They accepted the appointment of Al-Ibrahimi because they were embarrassed by Syria's positive cooperation. Therefore, they are preparing to foil the mission of the new envoy. The Western states are still involved in supplying the terrorists with weapons, money, training, and smuggling them into Syria. These facts make it necessary for Al-Ibrahimi to exert efforts and to obtain guarantees and commitments to stop supporting terrorism. If al-Ibrahimi ignores the plots of the West and its allies, his mission would reach an impasse like the one which Annan faced and which made him resign.
The work of the preparatory meetings for the 16th round of the Non-Aligned Movement Summit started in the Iranian capital Tehran with the participation of 120 delegations, including a Syrian delegation headed by Deputy Foreign Minister Dr. Faisal al-Muqdad. Iranian Foreign Minister Ali Akbar Saleh stressed his country's rejection concerning any interference in the affairs of the countries of the region under any pretext, pointing out that we are now facing big developments as we must invest in the capability of the non-aligned movement to bring security, peace and justice all over the world. Saleh pointed out that the sovereignty of the nations threatened by foreign intervention and the international relations atmosphere prevail with antagonism and disharmony, which is what makes us in great need for collective steps to transfer the world to another dimension of respect for each other's internationally recognized rights, especially the right to self-determination. He clarified that the Zionist entity represents the international terrorism and that the achievement of peace in the region will only be stopped by the Israeli occupation of Arab territories and the return of Palestinian refugees to their lands. Iran had earlier announced that consultations would be held on the sidelines of the summit with countries that have consistent viewpoints with Iran on a comprehensive project submitted by Tehran to resolve the crisis in Syria. In Iraq, 2 policemen were killed and a judicial investigator was injured in 2 separate attacks. An Iraqi security source said that the 2 policemen were killed when armed men riding a vehicle opened fire on them from weapons with silencers, shooting at their police patrol in the Aoud neighborhood to the north of Baghdad. The judicial investigator at the criminal court was injured in Kirkuk due to an attack launched by armed men in the Wahid Huzairan 1st of June area in the city.